Let's get talking. The operations of micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs in Nigeria, no doubt have the potential of growing the gross domestic product of the country, if given the necessary business and financial support needed by the government, as this has crippled the business activities of the sector. However, in a bid to deepen financial or financing of MSMEs in Nigeria, the BOI established a mechanism that was for the business development support providers across the country to access finance and entrepreneurial development, as well as assist MSMEs develop bankable businesses to improve plan to facilitate finance and improve their record keeping. But now, the federal government has again re-established a steering committee, that's a national steering committee on national business development service providers, as BDSPs in the country. A lot of work to actually bridge this gap, facilitate support for MSMEs in the country, giving us insights into the operations and activities of BDSPs across the country and what it means. I have joining me live in our Lagos studio, very interesting, the first day of the month of March, two renowned professionals. First is Dr. Waheed Olagunju, who is the former acting managing director of chief executive officer of the Bank of Industry, and also the chairman, National Steering Committee on Accreditation of Business Development Service Providers. Thank you so much for your time on the show.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and on the other side, I have another professional, a director of Enterprise Development Center at the Pan-Atlantic University, Mr. Peter Bamkole. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let me start this way. First is, I want to look at this MSMEs in general. Let's start that way. A lot of talks about MSMEs being the backbone of every economy. But in Nigeria, as at today, the figure I saw was 41.5 million numbers that are operational in the country at the moment, according to NBS and SMEDAN. How would you assess operations of MSMEs at the moment? Are they really performing up to expectations?
Thank you very much for having me and for giving us the opportunity to be on your program. Clearly, like you said, if we have about 40 million MSMEs in Nigeria, and we are still where we were, we're still where we are in terms of national development, what is clear is that that sector is underperforming and is not being able to optimize its potentials as MSMEs have done in other economies. A lot of statistics are there. I don't need to bother you with that, but look at the US, look at China, look at Asia, look at even other African countries. MSMEs have done creditably well. So when we say they're underperforming in Nigeria, if they were doing well, the level of unemployment and unemployment we're having in Nigeria will not have, we will be having them. Because combined unemployment and unemployment, we're looking at about 40 million youths that need to be actively engaged to become productive. We need to be able to establish 1 million MSMEs every year that will be viable, given the mortality rate, high mortality rate of MSMEs. Because there's no point creating MSMEs, they'll employ workers, they'll collapse after a few years, then they'll lay off staff. According to the African Development Bank, the African countries turn out about 20 million youths every year into the unemployment market. It's estimated that about 4 million of them are from Nigeria. So if we are to actively engage to make those 4 million productive over a 10-year period, to reduce the unemployment figures to single digits, we can't completely bring it down to zero, but at least bring it down to single digit. It means that we need to be able to establish 1 million SMEs there, because it is assumed that every SME creates employment for about 4 workers. So if you have 4 million and there are 1 million SME every year, creating 4 million jobs every year on a sustainable basis over the next 10 years, then we're able to lift a lot of Nigerians out of poverty and reduce the unemployment rate. So there is need for MSMEs to be actively supported. About 10 years ago, the EDC of the Pan-Atlantic University and KPMG conducted a study, and they realized that they diagnosed the challenges facing MSMEs in Nigeria, and they came up with an acronym MSFIT. The first being market access, the second being infrastructure. Then the S there is support. So that's where BDSPs, business development service providers, or also known as SME consultants, come in. Because in terms of capacity, it's very important. Entrepreneurs, we need to build the capacity of entrepreneurs. You want to talk of entrepreneurs that are maybe about 3 categories. The brownfields, those who are already in business, are they doing well? How are we going to ensure that we strengthen them to build their capacity, to ensure they're able to optimize opportunities, right? And then manage their risks to prevent them from collapsing. Then there are those who know what they want to do, but they don't know how to go about it. Helping them to actualize their vision is another area where business development service providers assist. Then there are those who don't even know what to do at all. So BDSPs can sensitize those people to the areas in which Nigeria has comparative advantages that can be efficiently and effectively converted into competitive advantage. And then we need to teach them how to go about it. They need to come up with their business model. They need to come up with, because it's called a business model canvas, right? They need to come up with bankable proposals.
Yes.
When you say bankable, it doesn't mean every entrepreneur must go to the bank for a facility. Making it bankable means that will be viable, that will be sustainable. Because there are so many ways you can raise funds, not only through credit. There's also the debt aspect, there's also the equity aspect. There are people who can invest in your business, but you need to come up with a business that is potentially viable. So that's where BDSPs come into play. Yeah.
Let me follow up now, Mr. Abamkole. Now, going through your CV and all of that online, of course, I did that. I saw that you've pioneered so many projects like the UWIN and all of that with business innovation and growth. And can you tell us how BDSPs can really help push up, help us achieve what we really intend to achieve with regards to productivity on the sides of SMEs operating in Nigeria?
Thanks a lot, Tolu, for having me and on your program. You see, the challenge is that, yes, you've quoted a figure about 40 million or so MSMEs, and out of that 40 or thereabout, 99.8 of them percent are actually the micro.
Yes.
So and so for us, it's important if we can grow those micro into small. Even if they employ just one more person, that means we could literally leap by 30, 40 million. And so it is important that we should not pay lip service to saying that they are the backbone of the economy. We should do something about it. Unfortunately, those people that support this segment, we are not sure of the quality of the support. So at the end of the day, these small businesses, they get shortchanged. And so in having a strategic alliance with SMIDAN is to say, how can we develop a plan where whosoever is playing in this sector, we can build their capacity properly. We can measure the quality of output that they are giving to these small businesses. That way, we can be assured that they are paying for those services. So what we have done, SMIDAN actually accredited 2 institutions. Okay. The EDC of the Pan-Atlantic University for the South and KBS, Kaduna Business School for the North. And with the 2 of us, what we are supposed to do is to run a 1-week program for all those professionals in this side. After that, then they will sit, they will go through the interview panel, which is headed by Dr. Lagunju, and that's when you get your license to be able to practice. And of course, what we then do is to monitor them and to make sure that they are delivering the service. When they do deliver service to the small businesses will also rate them, just like you have Uber rating and things like that. That way, we can get them motivated to deliver quality, and we can also follow them along the way. So that way, we have a big structure. As I speak to you today, even we're going beyond those consultants on their own. We're moving to financial institutions. Today, Sterling Bank, for instance, is developing all their SME desk officers across the country. We're running about 200 of them through the same process, and all of them will understand what it takes to be able to intervene in this space.
So Dr. Lagunju, when we look at other issues which you also highlighted, financing, tax issues, and all of that MSMEs grapple with daily, how do you see them how can they, practically, Nigerians will say yes. How do you think that they can just move to where they're supposed to be with all of this, with instituting this kind of committee directly? What's the working and composition of the committee?
Well, like Mr. Bankole said, there's about 12 members on that steering committee.
Okay.
The EDC of the Pan-Atlantic University is a member. Cardinal Business School is a member, and then there are some other experienced BDSPs. The Central Bank is a member,
Okay.
the Abuja Enterprise Agency, and some other development, finance, and development facilitating institutions are also members of the National Steering Committee. So we need to accredit BDSPs across the country in sufficient numbers to be able to intervene in a country of this size. So we need to have competent and efficient BDSPs. Once we have them in those critical numbers across the country, then they can support the MSMEs in their own environs.
Okay.
And it's going to be done in a structured manner. We're just in phase 1. In phase 2, subsequently, we're going to be coming up with digitized contents that will help those MSMEs. Because almost all of them have, for instance, mobile phones. They only use those phones for discussions. But then there are ways in which contents can be disseminated to them to support them, right, on how to run their businesses. To be an interactive platform where they can also engage with the BDSPs. Like in agriculture in those days, you had extension workers from Ministry of Agriculture and some other agencies who are on the farms to support the farmers. But in this digital age, such services can be delivered virtually, right? Occasionally, yes, there can be interface between the BDSPs and the MSMEs. Now, another strategy is that you need to localize the MSMEs.
True.
It's not enough to just run them through capacity building programs and expose them to the vagaries of the society. When I say vagaries, the challenges you talked about. So one of the ways of insulating them from the vagaries of society is localizing them, having them in industrial parks. Once they are in an estate, an industrial park, they don't have the challenge of looking for land. They don't have the challenge of being their own local government, providing their water, providing their electricity, providing their security. If they're in an enclosure, it's also easier for the BDSPs to reach out to them. It's easier for the financial institutions to also administer credit. Many of them are not able to meet the requirements of financial institutions for credit because, for instance, you need to prove to the financial institution that the property on which you are operating belongs to you.
Yes.
And according to the Land Use Act, you need to show either the CFO or consent to assignment. How many MSMEs can get that? It's the processes are long, procedures are cumbersome, and they're quite expensive. And there is no reinventing the wheel. We've seen this done in other clients,
Okay.
where they are in an industrial park, then they can operate better. There will be a lot of synergy. They'll be able to reinforce one another. And then, of course, you'll also insulate them from the multiple levies, multiple charges, having local government officials, state government officials running after them, you know. So we need to be, it's going to be a holistic approach. We need to be able to create an ecosystem for them to be viable on a sustainable basis. And this we have to do in all the 774 local governments. We're talking about democratizing entrepreneurship. Like I said, establishing 1 million new MSMEs every year. If you divide that by 774 local governments, we're looking at an average of about 1,200 and something, almost 1,300 MSMEs in each local government. Because we need to throw up the figures so that we know the magnitude of the challenges we are faced with. So if you have an industrial park in each local government, it doesn't have to be established by government. There are community-based institutions that can also help. We need to be able to help ourselves. In each local government, there are wealthy people across the country who perhaps are looking for structured ways of supporting. Because, I mean, if you drive around, we're talking about a lot of traffic robberies. Even in highbrow locations nowadays, you see all these youths all over the place. We need to actively engage them. We need to ensure that they're productive. And one of the best ways of doing so is the kind of support that we're talking about. The more BDSPs we have, the more of those support that will be made available across the country. And once that is done, that will also help them, right, to ensure that actually, for instance, agriculture. Feeding a population of 200 million is big business. Then if you look at the value chain of agriculture, vertically and horizontally. You know, there's a lot that can be done across the value chain, right? You can talk of primary production, you can talk of value addition.
Yeah.
There are services too that support agriculture. Then look at solid minerals. 44 of them have been identified.
Yet to be
by the
tapped.
federal government, yet to be tapped. Then polymer production, then creative industry, then even the ICT. So that's why at times I'm tempted to say that the unemployment in Nigeria can be described as artificial. Because if we are to harness the natural resource endowments of this country, I'm of the view that we will not have enough manpower to run the Nigerian economy, as we did not have in the 70s and the early 80s, when we had to import labor from West African countries. Even in our factories, even in schools, even in the hospitals, we have Ghanaian teachers, Ghanaian lecturers, all over the place. So there's a lot that can be done only if we get our act together.
Let me ask you, Mr. Bamikole, that SMEs must be competitive. Looking at AFCFTAs, even is somewhere there, we have to be competitive. Do you think that we are ready to meet up with initiatives like this one?
You know, one thing that I can close my eyes and beat my chest when it concerns Nigerians is that they are not afraid of competition. As we speak today, if you look at investments into Africa, Lagos, for instance, has been in the last 2 years the startup capital for Africa. There's a reason for that. And you see that they don't, before now, yes, we try to operate within our space, but now people have gone beyond even Africa. And so the Continental Free Trade Agreement is going to be another platform in which we're going to showcase what Nigerians are able to do. Mind you, even before then, go to Kenya today, you will see a number of Nigerian small businesses running show there. Go to Ghana, go to almost across Africa. So what the platform is just going to do is to connect all of that together for us. Luckily, we already have the financial infrastructure to be able to drive that. You see most of our banking industries, they're already across the country. So that was what drove, development across West. And we already have that platform in place. I know that it's not a big deal. Now, there are a few things like the public power supply. That is making us like 30% uncompetitive, according to the World Bank studies. But all of that will, in a way, be resolved because Africa will be seen as a platform. And where it's most viable is where we will produce. So, for instance, I have one of these small businesses, CC Hub. They have 4 or so locations across Africa today. When it comes to design, they are based in Rwanda because it is a lot easier for them to do design and things around policies and everything, and then they roll it across Africa. When you talk about human resource, they have that in Nigeria, and then when you talk about connection to the world and to they are based in Nairobi. So for them, Africa is their world, and they can be Nigerians, they can be Nigerian companies, but they don't have to operate 100% from Nigeria alone. They can operate anywhere within the continent. We're going to see more of that as we open up the continent to SMEs.
Opening up, I don't, because AFCFTA, I also wanted your comment around that. But let's also look at the figures. We say 41.5 across 36 states. I'm also looking at the level of education of some of the SME operators. Like, look at the COVID instance and the NSAS issue. Many were not insured. A lot of issues happened. How well are we also doing to educate them and let them understand they need to take advantage of technology at this time?
Yeah, that speaks to what I was telling you about the GSM access, about 200 million. Then the data access, from what we understand, about 150 million, 154 million. Now, if they are able to operate those gadgets, that presumes some level of literacy. You don't need to have a university degree to be an MSME entrepreneur. You are talking of financial inclusion, you're talking of business inclusion, you're talking of productivity.
Yes.
So through those gadgets, like I was saying, you can digitize content and reach them and support them. There was a pilot, what I could describe as a pilot, the Empower scheme. I was involved, right? The first 100,000 while I was at the Bank of Industry. We made available the the equipment they used, the devices they used. And a lot of data was pushed across to those in agriculture, those in health, those in the educational sector. And they're able to produce on their own and operate on their own. And they continue to receive support from those who are guiding them through those processes. And with all due respect, some of the most successful entrepreneurs we have in Nigeria today are not university graduates. From experience, I happen to have been associated with Dr. Innocent Chukwuma, also known as Innocent.
Innocent.
Right? In my days in NIDB, and he was an SME. But I worked with him, I watched him grow from being an SME to where he is today, producing vehicles. You also have Alhaji Kamal Din Yusuf, Dr. Kam, Kwara State. Right, he's in the iron and steel sector. He is doing extremely well. Then you need to go to places like Kano, Amasco, producing petroleum products and exporting them across across Africa. I'm talking about the AFCT you are talking about. Salisu Buhari, who was the Speaker of the House of Reps in 1999, when he left politics, he became an industrialist. He established Rumbu Sachs, based in Kano. He has flourished in the last 2 decades, and he exports his products to other African countries, right from Kano there. And that was what Dr. Kamdi Yunkela was saying, former DG of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. He was talking about the Golden Triangle. At the 2012 Olympics, we had an investment summit on Nigeria in London, where he talked about the Golden Triangle, saying that you need to build rail lines between Port Harcourt, Kano, and Lagos. He was saying that if we do that, the economies can be built around those rail lines. And that's the good thing about what the government is doing on the area of railway infrastructure. So rather than vandalizing those rails, what we should be thinking of doing is how can we build economies around those rail lines? Because what he was saying is that if you have Port Harcourt, for instance, from Port Harcourt you can export to Central Africa and to West African countries. Lagos, you can reach the ECOWAS markets. Then from Kano, you can reach the landlocked African countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. So AFCT will provide a lot of opportunities for Nigeria. We will not be talking about only feeding 200 million Nigerians. We will not be talking about feeding the entire African continent. We have the potentials. And even Africans in diaspora, Nigerians in diaspora, the diaspora population is exploding. But Nigerians like to eat Nigerian food. So there are export opportunities opening up. Like Ebano opened up in Canada. So the Nigerians, these are people with purchasing power. So MSMEs can earn foreign exchange through these opportunities. So that's what the BDSPs will also be doing. That's what the misfit I was talking about, the market access that was diagnosed in the challenges, then the information, then the support, then the finance, then the infrastructure, and then the technology. So our job is well cut out. It's just for us to come up with competent and efficient BDSPs that we will accredit, working closely with the EDC, like Mr. Bankole said, and the Kaduna Business School. And a lot of them are enthusiastic. About 2 weeks ago, we had a conference in Lagos that was also supported by some of EDC's development partners, the MasterCard Foundation and Oxfam. And they do a lot of collaboration with most of these foreign development aid agencies who are willing to support Nigeria, provided we're able to get our act together and we support ourselves.
Let me stay with Mr. Bankole now. Mr. Bankole, PEBEC was put together by government to make business environment easier and all of that. But there was even one particular one-stop shop where we had all agencies there, the vice president there, sorting out all of these problems. I want to talk about that. What positives do you think that has actually given to us with focus on MSME space? And tell us a little bit about the Enterprise Development Center. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so let me start with EDC.
Okay, then.
And then to start with what Wahid was talking about.
All right.
You know, in the last, let's say, 10, 15 years, we graduate on the average about 500 to 800 SMEs every year. But in the last 3 years, since COVID, and we have digitized and moved online. Every year, we do roughly 50 to 60,000. So imagine that scale up from less than 1,000 to over 60,000. And we're moving even more to something like 250, 300,000 every year. That's what digitization does for you. That's one aspect of it. We do business development. We do capacity building. But it's like hand-holding somebody and saying, let us walk you through. A classic one, and you can Google it, is the moi moi lady. And that's a typical one that I would like to show as an example. She started her business with 1,000 naira, just making moi moi, ordinary moi moi that we knew. But from there, coming to EDC, working hard through how understanding business management can help her grow her business. She grew that within 2 to 3 years, about 16 million every year. Now that's a lot. And that has taken her beyond even the shores of Nigeria. Today, not only is she still selling her moi moi, but she's also doing much more. Now she's moved into catering and all the rest. So what capacity development does for you is to expose you, is to expand your horizon, is to expand your thinking. And what the BDSP does is to hold your hand and walk you through that process. You know, in their lifetime, they will have seen many examples, and they can cross-pollinate those examples and help you to walk through. They understand the potholes, and so they can navigate you around those ones. As far as Payback is concerned, it's been mixed bag, but I would say it's been useful for the system. They have been able to reduce a lot of the bottlenecks. We've been able to put efficiency into some of the government agencies. But the reality also is that the private sector have a lot to do, to play. And we must understand that for us to move forward, all hands truly must be on the deck. And so if EDC is cooperating with SPEDAN, which is a government agency, if the financial institutions are cooperating with us, it's not because anybody wants to take or want to shine. It's because our eyes are on the small businesses that must truly help us to develop our economy. So Spebeck should open up a little bit, let us work together, and then be able to achieve the purpose.
Dr. Olagunjutu, everyone knows that you're the former acting MD CEO of Bank of Industry. So what more? A lot of talk, you've been so active with regards to the MSME space. We know that, even at the bank and all of that. But tell us more about what you're doing at the moment.
Well, I left the University of Lagos in 1981. I got 2 degrees from the University of Lagos. So in the last 40 years, I've been involved in development work.
Yeah.
Even in my first call, while I was at the NTA, I ended up being the head of the economy desk. And the issues we're talking about today were the issues I covered as at then, MSME development. I mean, I was present when the late Dr. Chespe Okongo established NAFON, for instance, right? And many other initiatives. When the Chief Olufalaye was Secretary of Government of the Federation, we were talking about finding alternatives to wheat. But 30 years after, 40 years after, we're still importing wheat. That shows that we've not been serious as a country. And we need to get serious. Because there is cold in, because Russia is sneezing and we're catching cold in Nigeria, we're talking about wheat importation from Russia. That should not be. Right? So, right now, what I do is that I'm into advisory services, making available the lessons I've learned the last 40 years. Like he talked about us working with so many entrepreneurs. Some failed, some have succeeded. So those we are supporting now is to ensure that we guide them against the failures of previous entrepreneurs, the challenges they had. How can we help them to ensure that they don't repeat those mistakes? And then those who have succeeded, what are their success factors? How can we make those success factors available to contemporary entrepreneurs so they can build on those success factors? And our experience varies, not only in Nigeria, but even across border. You know, you heard me cite the examples of Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Bangladesh. With all humility, I mean, in those 40 years, I've traveled to more than 40 countries as well. So a lot of experience to deploy to support entrepreneurs in Nigeria, private sector, as well as government agencies and international development partners who are willing to support the development of Africa. That's what I do right now.
Great stuff. Now let's wrap up now on this note, Mr. Bamiko. What's your projection with all of these challenges? Because I even read that IMF says we are losing about, I don't want to quote the figures now because I know the government has come against us saying no, that's not true. But what's your projection with regards to this space, the MSME space, moving on in 2022? We've seen the challenges of COVID. Well, fairly better now, but COVID still exists. We need to still be careful. But what do you think would happen moving on with regards to MSME's development, probably across the continent?
Okay, so first of all, we're going to see three things happen. The first one is digitization of MSMEs. We noticed that during the pandemic, we did a study, and about 7% of the MSMEs in Nigeria actually thrived during the pandemic. Actually thrived. And when we dug down, digitization was a key factor. So somebody that owned a restaurant turned it into the kitchen because you knew the kitchen was at the center of gravity of your business and you could link it up with logistics. So digitization is going to be a key factor. It's already happening across the continent. The second one is going to be democratization of payment systems. And we're beginning to see that, not just in Nigeria, but across the continent. That's why if you check the top 2, 3 or so businesses that are making waves, they are the payment systems. So once we solve digitization of processes, we solve payment, and then the last one is going to be assurance of service and quality. Because that we have lacked to some extent. Somebody says, I don't know if I'm going to get what they promised me. The minute we start to do that, these are the three components we're going to skyrocket small businesses in the next 3 to 5 years, especially with the ACFA that we are seeing.
Do you share that view?
Of course, yes. I'm an incurable optimist. And we've been at it for several decades. Yes. And that's why we're working together till today. I mean, the future is quite bright. So it's for us to support those current and potential MSMEs in Nigeria. And like I told you, I mean, more than 30 years experience in development banking, and then so the future is quite bright.
Wow. So MSME should start to prepare to march to more success as we move in the month of March. Thank you so much, the Chairman, National Steering Committee on Accreditation. That's accreditation of business development service providers. And on my other side too, I had Director of Enterprise Development Center at the Pan-Atlantic University, Mr. Peter Bamikole, and Dr. Waheed Olagunju. Thank you so much.
Thank you
I appreciate this. Made my first day of the month of March. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.